specialist in the pathology of pregnancy and birth. I'm looking for things to go wrong. I have my glasses on, and the more I can control the situation by monitoring every heartbeat of the baby, by controlling the amount of fluid that the woman gets by giving her an IV, by taking away any of her pain perceptions, by giving her drugs, by speeding up labor with artificial hormones, by slowing her labor down by drugs, I can now control the process. And why do I want to control the process? Because I want a 100% assurance that we're going to have a live baby. And the great unknown of natural childbirth and giving the woman control is just that. The outcome is unknown. And for the obstetrician, he equates safety with survival.
Having said that, the research shows that when you intervene, in fact, you can cause what's called a cascade of interventions and problems that is not good for the mother and baby, and you don't get as good an outcomes with most mothers as you would if you avoided those interventions.
Stand by, please. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuning into It's Rainmaking Time. We are streaming this segment on birth, A Gentler Birth, with Roberta Scare and Barbara Harper. And we are introducing you to the fact that birth has been taken over by the medical establishment and turned into a medical procedure. We are invoking the call to bring birth back to an organic process that is actually safer and more reliable and always has been. And please continue.
I want us to talk about water birth.
Let's talk about water birth. Many years ago, I actually heard about water birth, and I thought to myself, that sounds interesting. It certainly sounds more enjoyable than laying on your back with your feet in stirrups. However, the first thing I thought was, okay, if a baby's born in water, it's going to die because it's going to suffocate, it's going to drown. Can somebody please tell the public, is that true?
Well, of course it's not true, because we're edging close to 250,000 water babies in the world, and that's over the last 20 years. But still, the movement is growing incredibly quickly as women discover the amazing benefits of allowing water to support their larger bodies and the weight of the baby, and to give them autonomy. That tub, when you get into a bathtub or a birth pool that has enough water in it to make you buoyant. And buoyancy, if we go all the way back to physics, it's called the Archimedes principle.
What is that?
Well, you put an object in water, and if you have enough water, if the water is deep enough, at some point the object then rises to the surface and becomes buoyant.
Sounds like it's rainmaking time to me.
Definitely. We need lots of water.
We're buoyant over here.
Yeah.
Well, let's just take, for instance, let's say a woman is 200 pounds when she kind of waddles into the labor room, okay, or goes into labor, just for an example. And when she gets into the birth pool, she loses 75% of her body weight. So she's now 50 pounds. And so a woman who...
Is that true? Is that literally true?
Literally true on scientific and physics principles, yes. If the water is deep enough to cause buoyancy.
How deep does she have to be?
I want to break it. If this is a great way to lose weight, I want our listeners to know.
Ladies, I'm going into water immediately.
Okay.
Don't talk to me after this show. I'll be in my bathtub.
All you have to do is be in a bathtub that's about 20 inches deep.
20 inches deep. I'm writing this down. 20
inches deep. The bathtubs that Water Birth International creates and rents and sells to hospitals and birth centers and midwives and couples all over the world are 24 inches in depth, and you fill it to about 20 inches. So that gives you enough room to move. Once your body becomes buoyant, you don't have the effects of gravity. You have all the weight taken off of your legs, your thighs, your joints it's easier to move. Just get into your hot tub or a swimming pool and see how you feel.
But then wait, hold on one second. Stand by right there. Then, if that's so, for the listening public, since if we were naturally squatting back in time in order to give birth, and then it got converted and we were on our backs. The gravity effect of squatting helped the baby come out. In this case, what you're saying is that with water birth, you don't even have to depend on gravity. Is that true?
Babies know how to come out. Yes, absolutely.
Barbara, I want you to talk about why babies don't drown, though.
Yeah.
Let's get back to that question. And water birth has been around for a long time.
How long? Roughly.
As long as women have, some anthropologists would take us all the way back to 1.5 million years ago, when our cousins came out of the trees and went down to the savannah in Africa, and it was so hot that they went to the ocean side and actually did everything in the water. They had sex in the water. They delivered their babies in the water. They lived on the beach and did everything in the water.
What cousins are you referring to? Because my cousins still live in the trees. What about the ones you're referring to?
Well, there's anthropological studies and books about that possibility that we had a water interlude in our evolution.
I believe that.
If we look at, we're the only mammal that has the long hair. We've lost all our body hair. That's because we lived in the water so long. And our breasts float. They're floating things. So we are more an aquatic mammal than a land mammal for some anthropologists. But all of those things have been written about, and I wrote a little bit about that in my book, Gentle Birth Choices. And I'll expand on that theory in my next book that's coming out called Water Birth, Embracing the Miracle. So the miracle is that this baby grows in a fluid environment. The baby is 9 months inside the womb, which has a fluid-filled sac in it called the amniotic fluid. And that baby does not breathe in there. The baby gets all of its oxygen from the placenta, which is attached to the mother, and the umbilical cord is attached to the baby. And so it's got this lifeline attached to it. When it comes out into the water, that lifeline is still attached. It doesn't know that it basically has been born yet, and it's receiving still all of its oxygen in the same safe, steady state that it always has when it was inside the mother.
I think that's what people don't associate with water birth.
Well,
they don't know.
Well, in the hospital, they cut the cord immediately, and the baby goes off to, the warmer and gets dried and checked out, and in the water, the baby remains attached to that cord for a very long time comparatively. And
what is it, minutes?
Somebody gently lifts the baby up, places it, or the mother herself lifts the baby up out of the water and into her arms immediately. And we don't recommend cutting the cord until the placenta has been delivered or the pulsations have stopped completely.
Why is that?
Because that baby needs the blood from the placenta. That baby thrives on that extra blood from the placenta. You're depriving the baby of an enormous amount of blood and oxygen when you cut that cord immediately.
Some people may not understand that. Can you expound? When you cut the cord immediately, it invokes a state of emergency, if you will? Is that what you're leading to?
It forces the baby to become a land mammal, air-breathing individual, and cuts off its oxygen supply that it still is getting from its mother. It's still pumping blood from the mother's placenta into the baby when you cut it immediately. It normally pumps for anywhere from, on the low side, 5 minutes to, on the high side, 20 minutes.
There isn't any research that shows that cutting the cord early is better for the baby.
And there's research now that shows just the opposite, that they've taken babies who are born by cesarean section and done a double-blind study, and just even allowing the cord to pulsate for 1 full minute after the baby is delivered by cesarean out of the womb, and just 1 minute, 60 seconds, gives the baby twice as much oxygen. The babies do better, and they leave the intensive care unit sooner. This was with premature babies, by the way.
That's amazing. 1 minute.
1 minute. 1 minute. It would help even 30 seconds. You know?
Do you think
I'm pretending I'm a listener here, and Barbara, I didn't hear you say that you know better than anyone that it's when the baby's face hits the air.
I was getting there. Thank you, Roberta.
I think Roberta